What's up, this is Nak3d Eli, the mostly unclothed gamer, and welcome to episode 6 of Breaking Halo 4. In this video, I'm going to break down Halo 4's spawn system in extreme mathematical detail, and I wanted to do it for a few reasons. First, Halo's never really explained in-game how its spawn system works, yet it's one of the most crucial game elements to understand for competitive play. So hopefully by making this video, I'll help a few more people understand it. Second, with this information, you can predict enemy spawns with a much greater degree of certainty, and that means you'll know where the enemy is, and you can move around the map with better angles, with greater map control, guarantee that you'll die less and live more by learning how the spawn system works. Third, if you're just curious why you spawn where you do every time you die, this video will also answer that question. Alright, so the data I'm about to present comes from Tiberius Audley, who was asked by the competitive community to do spawn testing. So big thanks to him for getting the numbers crunched and writing a fantastic article about his findings. The math that follows is from that article, which I've linked in the description for you. So since Halo 3, spawns have revolved around respawn points set on maps via Forge mode. Players only spawn onto respawn points, and which one they spawn on depends on a number of mathematical factors, whereby the highest value is your selected respawn point. Here is a list of all the factors Tiberius tested and approximate values for influence. I've listed the values in descending order of priority for the positives and negatives so you can see what has the largest impact on your spawns. Now let's analyze those in further detail, starting with the positives. The largest positive influence on your spawning is the respawn zone. These zones are basically big areas where the map editor tells the game, I strongly think a player should spawn on the respawn points within this area. These respawn zones are not visible in-game, so you have to go into Forge and find where they are placed to see the area of influence. Fun fact, in Halo Reach, players could only respawn in these zones. However, in Halo 4, you can spawn outside of them if the math determines it's in your best interest, like when you're getting spawn killed at your base and it sometimes spawns you mid-field. The next highest positive influence is nearby ally. This means they're within 12 Forge units of a respawn point. One Forge unit is equal to 3 meters as judged by your visor, DMR, or sniper rifle scope. So 12 Forge units is 36 meters away. This is roughly the radius of your motion sensor, which is 40 meters in Halo 4. Equally valuable to a spawn is an ally inside the respawn zone, which also adds 275 points. This is pretty self-explanatory. Basically, for every team member inside a respawn zone, you're adding 275 points to all the respawn points within that zone. And the final positive contribution to your spawn is the weak respawn zone, which adds only 100 points to a group of spawns, so you're slightly more likely to spawn there. Now let's move on to the negatives. The largest negative influence in Halo 4, as you'd expect, is the nearby enemy. The game does not want you spawning close to enemy players. Specifically, the term nearby means an enemy is within 9 Forge units of a spawn, which is equal to 27 meters or roughly 3/4 the distance from the center of your radar. Map geometry does not block this influence, by the way, so you can't camp on one side of a wall expecting the enemy to spawn on the other side. Next up on the negative list is enemy line of sight. This basically means looking at a spawn. More specifically, it means if you can see the respawn point through the first scope of your sniper rifle in the direction you're looking, then you're having a huge negative influence on the enemy spawning there. Quick note that any natural geometry or Forge objects between you and the respawn point will negate this influence. So if you're looking through glass or a window, the game won't subtract 340 points from that spawn. Moving on, we have respawn zone anti, which means spawn points in that zone receive negative 200 points. On Monolith, for example, all spawns in the middle have this anti effect. Next is death at negative 180 points, which isn't actually that much, and the value varies with distance. The negative 180 points only applies within 3 meters of your death and drops every 3 meters you move away from that. So at 9 meters, death's impact is only roughly negative 50 points, and that influence completely stops at 12 meters. And death influence lasts for 7 seconds. After death is enemy insider respawn zone, which subtracts 175 points from all the spawns in that respawn zone. Now this one really interests me because you'd expect allies to always have a positive influence on you. However, if an ally is looking at a respawn point, it has a negative 75 point influence on it. I'm guessing the game just doesn't want people seeing the spawn system at work. So it tries to avoid people just popping up on your screen all the time. Practically what this means in-game is that if you want your teammates to spawn on you, do not look at the spawns on your side, but rather turn your back to them and your teammates will have a higher chance of spawning right next to you. Finally, we have anti-weak respawn zones with a negative 50 impact on spawns. This is very low impact and only used for fine-tuning maps that already have an excellent spawn system. Now, before moving on to the final summary, Tiberius mentioned a few factors that he didn't test mathematically but might have an impact. The first is immediate danger, which is basically a rocket or grenade heading toward a spawn, which almost always negates that respawn point. The second is nearby objectives like the oddball, which he suggests may have a negative influence on spawns so people aren't spawning on the objective. And third is nearby weapon ordnance, which may negatively influence spawns so players don't spawn on power weapons. And that's the gist of the Halo 4 spawn system. Every single time a player needs to respawn, the game does a quick mathematical calculation, and the respawn point with the highest value is where that player will spawn. You can use this information to predict spawns in-game by making approximations of the largest factors. Enemy players will probably spawn on the opposite side of the map from your team in their respawn zones near their teammates where you are not looking, away from their death and away from where their teammates are looking. The best competitive players use this information to their advantage in-game, and I'm hoping you will too. So if you want to go into slightly more detail, I recommend reading Tiberius's article, which again is linked in the description. If you want to learn how to analyze maps, including the spawns, click on the video on the left. If you want to learn more about the Halo competitive mindset, click on the video on the right. Subscribe for more. This is Nak3d Eli, and thanks for watching.